It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
And we'll get the mute off. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of our Daily Gun Show. On Tuesdays, we focus on creating content, hopefully encouraging people to be part of the conversation, motivate, encourage, inform. And today we're going to be talking about video titles. I guess you could say blog post titles. This is YouTube. I guess I was just thinking videos. But again, this could be titles for a podcast or titles for a book. Effective titles. So let's dig into it. We do this live on Tuesdays. We try to do this before Cape Gunworks goes live with their 2A Tuesday segment of the Grace Curley Show. Big fan of the Rapid Fire Radio programs. They do 3 of them now each week. And we set this one up originally, more than 2 years ago, almost going on 2 years, on Tuesdays to sort of opening act for that show. And I'm a big fan of doing content creation. In fact, we've been doing content creation on Tuesdays since 2017, probably. So let's dig into it. Titles, that's one of the questions. Are they the most important thing we got going on? Some people would say the thumbnails are the most important thing. Some people would say the meat, the content is the most important thing. So how do we know? So we have a poll going right now. Oh, I guess I'm not screen sharing. Let's start screen sharing here. Got our puppy co-host who's exhausted from being in San Diego this weekend. So he's just going to be sleeping instead of being annoying or doing anything during the show today, I think. So we have a scroll going at the bottom of the screen. Our Patreons make it possible for us to spend time on projects like this one. Thank you. Our Patreons are 100% responsible for us being able to take time on Second Amendment stuff. I make way more money doing non-Second Amendment stuff, so taking the time to do this is awesome. I really appreciate it. So, boom, start screen sharing here. Our Patreons also made it possible for us to get to San Diego this weekend. It cost $500. The Patreons have a breakdown of it, and essentially I would not even have considered it, except that we have Patreons who are helping with the software and the servers, which is a bill every single month. We have other bills that come in weighted towards the end of the year. And again, our Patreons are people that are capitalists that are on board, subscribing to our projects. They appreciate the different things that we do that are real, that are live, that are unscripted. And because of that, we were able to book over to San Diego this weekend and check out what I hope is not the only San Diego or the last San Diego gun show. They had a couple of them in this one, I guess. Listening to the show yesterday, they only had 1,500 people show up, if that, and they expected more like 2,500. So, but thanks to our Patreons, we were 2 of those. If you count the puppies, we were 3 of those. I only brought Puppy in. I left Mello in the van. But aside from that, thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks to our Patreons to let us be here. Chris, you got a link over in the Instagram if you're able. I mentioned wanting to jump in yesterday if you want. I sent it over via Instagrams. But today we're going to talk about titles. I was thinking about what to do, and I had a couple of other ideas, but part of one of the other ideas was titles. And I thought, instead of trying to do something super big this week, let's kind of focus down. And titles are essentially focusing down on one aspect. Again, I've said video, but let's be real. This could be for a podcast or a description of a picture. It could be for an Instagram description or something. So I thought I'd throw something out here because I did have a lot of stuff on the scratch pad today. I'm going to just start off with some concepts, some things to ponder. And for those that are joining us live, I want to give you folks something to actually chat about. So again, most of the people that listen to this are going to be in a podcast sometime in the future, and they get to participate in this, but you're going to participate in it first. So some things to talk about would be, mastering that logarithm. So a title is a bunch of words, right? And they're going to either appeal, well, let's say they have to appeal to an eyeball, so with a brain behind it, a human. But then there's also the logarithms, the mechanics of how the internet works and how the social platforms work. And a title, which is a bunch of words, is what the mechanisms use to index, right? They have to sort and index with something. So if you make your title whipped cream and rainbows, and your content is, how to use a milling machine, it's going to be really difficult for that to sort. However, if everybody in the world knows that you're the whipped cream and rainbows milling machine guy, then humans might get that right away. So that logarithm isn't necessarily the number one thing, but it can be, and it's an element of it, right? Now you got writing head-turning titles. So that's more of that human, right? How are you going to get those eyeballs and the brains behind them? That's trending, that's fads, that's using words that people like or don't like. There's lots to that. You got short and sweet versus long and descriptive. This is one of the reasons I went with this one today, is we were having a short discussion on titles in a group that I'm in. And I think there's a lot of people that favor the short and sweet for some reason. I'm more of if you've got a number of characters to use them. Again, we're trying to appeal to both a human and a robot here. So you can try to appeal to both, or you can definitely appeal to one. And if it helps the other one, great. But if you always win with the robots, isn't that a win? I don't know. Let's have that discussion. Finding the right title length, sort of the same concept there. Speaking to your audience. So again, are we speaking to the logarithms? Are we speaking to the mechanics of the internet? Or are we speaking to those humans on the other side? If you can't get to those humans, right? If the robots can't put you in front of humans, then you can make the most flowery descriptive title ever. But if the robots don't know who to show it to, how useful is that excellent title for humans? So there's no perfect answer here. How titles can shape your brand and audience. So beyond the mechanics, oh, okay, he got called out. Well, that's unfortunate. Sorry. Hopefully it's keeping you going though. So no problem. Let's see. So just kind of talking to Chris there. Sorry. So how titles can shape your brand or your audience. So a title for a video, right? Is that a brick? Is that one stone? Is that one pebble? Is that one meal? Is that one little instance? Or is it, one brick in the wall? Is it one pebble in the, I don't know, whatever pebbles make? Or is it one meal in your overall diet for the year? So when you create a title, you may have won with the search engine, right? You may have won with whatever's trend to your hip right now, but is that getting you to your goal? Is it a deviation from your direction, or is it on track? Same with your overall brand. And, how can you brand if you're all over the place? You need to, most people suggest you need to be focused if you want to create something, some aspect to your project or your brand or whatever you want to call your channel. And then finally, future-proofing your titles. So whatever you do today, you do them, I don't know, think of a fancy dance or some trendy dance. You do something with the twist, and it might be cool for some people a long term, but other people are on to the, hokey pokey or whatever the next dance is. So going with trends might work for the logarithms for the time being, but is it possible to write titles that will be useful for the long run? You might say, I'll just go back and redo my titles. Well, what's your job going to be? Making new content, enjoying the fruits of your labor, or going back and constantly manicuring your stuff? So it's not black and white. If you've got highly producing videos or videos you'd like to see produced better, or videos that have important information in them, yeah, feel free to go back and change the titles. We're definitely not saying these were changed. Why yourself up to have a failure? So are we losing internet? What's happening here? Give me some feedback. It looks like I'm dropping internet. I'm blaming the co-host. His job is to pedal this little bicycle thing. It's made for a monkey, but he fits on it. And it powers a little tiny generator that keeps the internet going, but he sleeps. He doesn't drive on that motorcycle or that little bicycle at all. Okay, so let's dig into it. Chris says he's not going to be able to jump in because he's working. That's fine. But everybody else can participate in this if they want. It says we have about 90 people listening right now, but we only know about DJ saying, hey, welcome. Chris, 740 is out there. We link to his show tonight, so or the show's on Thursday, but we got a link to that. They'll get directed over to it. And then Snob is out there. Welcome. So those are only 3 people chatting, but there are people voting in the poll, and it's we do have a poll going right now. I'll drag that over to the screen. Can I zoom that in on that? I think I can. We'll zoom in for the people watching this at the moment. But what it says is, how important are titles? That's the first poll today. We're going to have another poll here in a little bit. But the first poll questions are ultimately important, as important as thumbnails, less important than thumbnails, or not that important. I don't know if I picked the best spectrum there, but the idea is, are thumbnails more important than titles? Same, or is the titles just not important at all? So feel free to participate in that poll. And if you're listening in the future, like I say, most people are going to be doing, you can always go back to the YouTube video and leave a comment. You can leave a comment on whatever platform you're on. And thanks for the feedback. Thanks. And barbecue's out there. Welcome. Barbecue's got quite a few thumbnail or title tricks out there over the years. All right, so I'm going to bring up the new podcast place, or not the new, but the newly updated podcast place. Every once in a while, I go over to the podcast place where we have our podcast. We podcast on Podbean, by the way, which then distributes it out to all different kinds of places, including Apple, iTunes, Google, whatever that's called, Podbean itself, Spotify, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. So that's where you're going to find the podcast. It's on a couple of other places that I'm now currently tying into Podbean. So everything's over there. We've got a bunch of podcasts to listen to. And again, people that are listening in the future, no matter which of the podcast platforms you're listening on, much appreciated when you leave a comment. We'll read those on the show, or give us one of the thumbs up or the likes or whatever the things are. Mellow's coming back inside, making a bunch of noise. I'll try closing the door so that she doesn't try to go back outside again. See if that works or not. No, it doesn't work. All right. So, yeah, and definitely thanks to the people. Tons of people are listening over there. It's neat to put it on Podbean. I used to just do the podcast ourselves and send it out, and you don't really know how many people are listening. So one of the advantages of pushing it through Podbean is that you can see how many people are watching or listening, I guess, downloading it. So again, thanks to everybody who's listening to the show. And we've also been, of course, posting everything over on Substack, which is what we're looking at on the screen for people that are watching this live. So feel free to subscribe to either one of those. It's pretty much all free. But we ask you to leave a thumb or a like or whatever, because, again, those really, really help. Nobody does that on podcasts. So when you leave a like on YouTube, yeah, it's appreciated. Thanks, But leaving a like on one of those podcast things for people, you're really helping them out. That's like 100 likes. Let's see. Barbecue's getting us off with, I hate to say it, but clickbaity titles are where it's at. If you make good content to keep people coming back, they will be mad, but they'll keep coming back every time. I know that's a what do you call it? A POV on it, a perspective on it. Let's see. All right. So we've got 10 strategies that we'll talk about that are likely to be effective in 2024 and beyond. So I understand what Barbecue's saying about the clickbaity thing, and I think it's sort of, I'm going to try using the newspapers here. You know, you've got your New York Times, or I don't even know. I'm not going to say the names because some of them are super political, but you've got back in the olden days, you had your respectable newspapers, and you had your tabloids, and you had your weeklies or something, you know, the stuff that was free at the gas station. And, you know, they all had their purpose. So if you were trying to sell a toaster, what did you care about the Wall Street Journal or the USA Today, right? Like, probably not at all. If you were trying to get word out to the whole world, you know, how are you trying to do it? So now if you think of it that way, that, you know, you've got these different ambitions for content, some of it is trying to get out to the whole world, some of it is just talking to your friends. So I think there's that aspect of it. But then I think if you think of newspapers over time and the way that I don't know, I'm old. So the people that like we can remember the National Enquirer and those tabloids near the newsstands. Those were a much bigger part of our culture before the internet, but they are what I'm going to refer to. There was a time when those things were hidden, when those things were on the newsstands, you know, as part of the other stuff there. But then they eventually got right to the checkouts. And as those TV shows like that, you know, were exploitive of people's personal problems, as those programs became pushed on us so that we became real petty and worried about each other's gossip and shit, those newspapers reflected it. And yeah, if you needed to sell something that was appropriate for those type of magazines, then you'd put there. I guess what I'm saying is the titles that you'd put on those gossip magazines kind of depend on how important those gossip magazines are to the culture. Now, right now, they're still there, but I haven't heard about them in forever. I mean, I'm bringing them up now, but when's the last time you even heard about like the National Enquirer or whatever those things are called? People that like them like them. People that don't like them forget that they even exist. And the rest of us moved on to the rest of the internet. So that's all I'm getting at, is I think that fads and catchy titles and clickbaity titles was definitely a thing. And I'm not saying it hasn't been effective, but I just don't know if it's permanently going to be effective is what I'm getting at. So as far as future proofing and or setting yourself apart, I think there's a lot to be said for more thought into titles. So let's dig into them. Intrigue and Curiosity. Spark users' interest, well, maybe viewers' interest with thought-provoking questions, surprising statistics, or presenting a problem in your videos. And these can be clickbaity. There's example here of, will technology change everything in 2024? Maybe will changing your titles, you know, create results in 2024? I don't think they need to be clickbaity, though. You can just have like a standard question, you know, does this work with, you know, a VCR? Like, can I watch videos on this? You know, if you're talking about something and you ask a very common question, that might be the way to go. However, if there's already 17 videos with the same title or something similar, then, you know, and if 17 videos are clickbaity question or titles, you know, are you going to stand aside? Are you going to stand as alone, or, you know, stand out as the non-clickbaity one? Oh, that's a good point. Men in Black says the tabloids are the only true media. So I guess a bunch of people do remember what tabloids are. Barbecue says, I'd like to change the vote to ultimately important. If you have a bad title, it doesn't pop in a search, then your thumbnail will never get seen. Yeah, and that's why I think there's a debate there. Because, you know, you catch this logarithm, you catch the machine and you get placed, but your thumbnail sucks. Or, you know, so you eagerly catch yourself in the search, but then you're weak on your thumbnail, and now you got there, but you always get ignored. And then there's the other way of, you got an excellent thumbnail and all you got to do is like casually search, you know, so casually place in search, I guess. And then when people are discouraged by the other thumbnails, they might scroll down and find yours, and now you're the standalone, cool looking thumbnail down there. And I think neither one is right or wrong. I think that's two different ways of explaining why this isn't a done deal. So I think intrigue and curiosity, again, doesn't have to be clickbaity. I think that can definitely, if you solve curiosity, that's why people are online probably, right? Is to answer a question or because they're curious. So if you can answer that curiosity, I think you can win. If, someone's like the best blender, the best food processor, I make the best smoothies in this. And then yours is, this does have a 3-prong outlet. Yes, you will need a grounded, plug to work this. Now you're finding fewer people perhaps, but the people that are looking for that question, boom, they're going to you. Specificity and relevance. Tailor your title to your target audience's pain points, desires, and interests. Use specific details that resonate with. Example, master the art of baking sourdough bread. Step-by-step guide for beginners. It's very descriptive, and they're definitely, I guess, hitting these points, being a beginner's guide for specifically sourdough bread. So that's interesting. I've had people say that cooking is the art and baking is a science. So mastering the art of baking seems like somebody's already putting their opinion on that. So as far as knowing the topic enough to understand what it is that people, again, are seeking out, that, I think that's what that one's saying. The desires and interests, I don't know, let somebody else worry about that one. Most of the time we're dealing with Second Amendment stuff, so our desire is to see no NFA, but our pain point is the other side is unaware of the situation and being deceived, right? So our interests and our desires are essentially leave us alone. But again, you could yell, my rights, my property all day. It doesn't make people leave you alone. Anyway, moving back on to benefit-driven language. Don't just list features. Highlight the benefits users receive. Explain how your video solves their problems or improves their lives. So their example is unlock your creative potential. 5 simple techniques to boost your creativity. Is this clickbaity? Unlock your creative potential. 5 simple techniques to boost your creativity. I don't know. It's pretty, I guess it's similar to this one. It's explaining, it's answering a question. You have to anticipate their question again. But again, if you understand the subject matter, then again, that's probably how a title could indicate that you know the deal, right? That you know the subject matter. Clear and concise. Now here, right here, it says avoid clickbait and ensure your title accurately reflects the video's content. Use clear, concise language that's easy to understand. It's hard to say too. If we're talking just titles for, I don't know, something dumb that doesn't matter, then what does it matter if it's clickbaity? Clickbaity, you got your view. If that's all you're worried about, maybe it's clickbaity, but you got your sale. If that's all you're worried about, it's clickbaity, but you got your subscriber, right? Because it was funny or something. You got what you wanted out of it. I get that. But again, if we're trying to change somebody's mind and not necessarily get them to subscribe to your channel, if we're trying to give people info so that they can have a better conversation, I like the idea of a title that accurately reflects the content as opposed to attracts the viewer. But I think that's the dilemma there. Do you attract the viewer or do you describe what's in your video? So their example is ultimate guide to choosing the right DSLR camera. I don't know. It sounds almost a little bit clickbaity with the ultimate, but because, guide to choosing your right DSLR camera in 2024 accurately describes what's going on there. Ultimate, is that concise? It's adding another word. It's kind of long. It's also putting a U on it when the G is closer to A. So if it's alphabetical, you're going to get stuck way in the back with a U letter, but I don't think that's too big a deal. All right, let's keep moving to number 5, action-oriented language. To encourage viewers to take action with strong verbs like learn, master, or discover. I've never heard of that one before. I guess it makes that sense. It makes some sense. Learn how to code in Python, free beginners course. And that might actually be interesting. Action-oriented for Second Amendment stuff. Learn how to have more effective communication with the other side. Learn how to create awareness within our own community. Master the discussion of mental health awareness. Next one is numbers and lists. People are drawn to lists and numbered formats. Use them strategically, but avoid clickbait tactics. So this one has actually been one since the beginning of YouTube. 3 top things, 5 deals, 7 something. 7's kind of big already, but it's usually top 3. I like the odd numbers. Probably some people like top 2, top 4. But I think there's some what's the word? There's some brain science there. That one has kind of been a thing for a long time. Now, people that are cued in on that for whatever reason, I think get offended by it. Kind of like the, honestly this, honestly that, to tell the truth this, like, quit saying that. Like, what, are you lying to me the rest of the time? Like, some people use that as a thing and don't think about it, but other people, once they're clued in on that, they just get sick of it. So I don't know how this one would be future-proofing, but it seems a little close to clickbaity when you just start off with, the top 5 this or 5 essential that. Barbecue is saying, option now would be choosing the correct mirrorless camera. Get brand new mirrorless cameras for the price people are trying to sell used. I don't know what you mean. Welcome, Baron's out there. We've got change in the voting over here. So instead of being all as important as thumbnails votes, we now have a not that important. So there's people saying that the thumbnails are not that important. Feel free to leave your reasonings or your vote in the comments there. So let's see. The next one, and I don't know, again, I don't know if this one probably works well because I think people's eyes are drawn to it and we think like, oh, top 3, good. I don't have to worry about 10 of them. I don't have to worry about 100 of them. They're going to narrow it down to the top 3. Or, okay, there's top 3 and I can see what this person, what their reasons are for these top 3. And then I can watch somebody else's top 3. I get that. But long term, again, these don't have to be your only options. What if you did a top 3 every week or a top, depending on your frequency of content creation, every 10th piece of content is a top 3. That's different than every piece of content is a top 3. Let's get into leveraging search trends. While not relying solely on trends, consider incorporating relevant keywords people are searching for, but avoid keywords. Jim McClip, bucks. Is there? And like up again. This little dog had the option in that little motorcycle and keeping our internet running, but instead he's just over here sleeping. He's sleeping off a bunch of cheese that he was eating earlier. Just so you know. Why not rely solely on trends? Not relying solely on trends. Consider incorporating relevant keywords people are searching for. Because keywords will change over time, and you can lose search with a keyword. There can be keywords that people are sick of. And unless you want to go back and change things, if this is a video that you plan on changing, then go nuts, do whatever you want. But if it's something you want to, set it and forget it, I'm not sure if I would work on trends. Now, relevant keywords, a little bit different. Trends are trendy, right? Trends are fads and they come and go. And what's super hot will be immediately forgotten. Maybe there's an echo of it, but it'll be a tiny little echo where you could have gone with something kind of medium, steady, and less dated. Because when you do something trendy, you're dating your stuff. Here's something that I said in the 80s because of the words I used. Well, you could say something more long-term and, say just normal things that aren't trendy, and your stuff might be relevant for longer. And I think that's an issue here. On the other hand, again, we're not talking about every video has to be everything. So again, if you think about it like, well, I'm doing X amount, I'm doing 10 pieces of content a month. Do I want to do 2 trendy titles and 2 call to action titles? And, or maybe if it's not a number, but, do I want to do some of this and some of that as opposed to all of this or all of that, or literally the same 15 things over and over and over and over for 6 months? I don't think very many people want exactly the same thing over and over and over, but I could be wrong. Let's see. Storytelling and emotion. Weave a compelling narrative or evoke positive emotions like curiosity, excitement, or inspiration. And I think this has some relevance for some things for sure. Their example is From Beginner to Marathoner, My Inspiring Journey. So, I think depending on what content you're talking about, if you're offering new information or something that's uncommon, then I think this could work. Suggesting that something is super exciting when it's literally just data, that might be just less effective, I guess. If someone thinks they're going to enjoy what you're telling them and it's just data, then I think letting them know what's coming is probably better off. At some point, I think we might change the poll over here, but I don't know. We're already almost done. So that storytelling and emotion, again, it kind of depends on the topic too. For certain things, it's expected, but I think you can also flip that around and put some different way of explaining something to people, and that might be effective. I don't have any examples of it, but essentially the emotion side, we're always complaining that they use emotions and we use facts. What would happen if we flipped that script? What would that script look like if we flipped it? Then we get to A/B testing. So, testing different versions. So don't be afraid to experiment and test different variations of your titles. Use analytics to see which versions perform best and refine your approach. So this is interesting, and a lot of people highly rely on this. And I think what you end up doing, if you think of A/B testing as, I don't want to do that, it's too much work, or that's making it into a job, or whatever the thing is, like I'm scared to do it, whatever your reasoning for not doing it is, remember that you don't have to do anything forever, because what happens is the people I've seen over the years that do get into it enough to start doing testing, try one title, change it out, try a second title. However, there's lots of strategies for this. Try it out, change the third title, or come up immediately with 3 titles and post it here with this title, here with that title, or something like that. Maybe even have a series where you're going to do 5 with this title, 5 with that title, 5 with that title. So it's not just alternating, or you're not just changing the ones, so in other words, permanently having a title, but then having batches of titles to test, essentially. So there's lots of different strategies here, but whatever your strategy is, however long you end up doing it, what you'll end up with is a knowledge or experience level that people that are just winging it don't get. So while it might not be for you, I think that the challenge or the exercise might be worth it for just about everybody to at least try it out. One, it might find out that, this is super easy, and it made more sense than what I was doing. I was putting one title on there like fishing. Like, do you go out fishing with one lure and a rod and, backup line maybe and a backup reel maybe, but just one lure? Or do you go out there with a rod and a reel and a whole tackle box? So if you think of the title as that lure, again, are you walking out there with one? You set it and forget it. If you put one out there and it fails, well, that's it. I'm done. I can't do nothing about it. I picked the wrong title. I've lost. Or do you look at it where, hey, this title isn't working fast enough, so let me change out that bait. Let me put a different title on there. Oh, it's still not happening fast enough. Let me change that bait. Oh, now it's slowed down even more. Let me go back to that first bait and change the color. So some people play with that. it's not necessarily, some people, yeah, they're desperate for views, or they're desperate for subs, or they're desperate for money, or whatever it is they're desperate for, and it might make it seem like it's a waste of time. But again, even if you don't do it long term, when you do that for a little while, you will discover what works better in titles. Now, another option to that, if you refuse to do this, is just do a lot of videos. You start doing way more videos than you've done. Imagine doing 10 more times more videos than you've done, and then just playing around with titles. You'll effectively get the same thing. But A/B testing can be way more structured and fast. Plus, you can just apply it to one video, especially if you start thinking, every video I make from now on, I'm doing 3 thumbnails and 3 titles. So you don't have to put this thumbnail with that title either. That gives you a pretty good variation of stuff you can experiment with when you have 3 titles and 3 videos, or 3 titles and 3 thumbnails for each piece of content you're putting out there. And yeah, you'll probably learn something from this, but it does take a bit of work and an attitude that your content is worth putting that work into. That's another hurdle that a lot of people don't have or can't get over. All right, so the last one, before we get into the last one, which was a good one. Sorry, I'm stretching because I'm doing all the work and my co-host is just sitting here. Let's go with the next poll. How do we do this? Can I do it? I'm going to end the poll. We'll end the poll now in front of everybody so that everybody knows we're not cheating. Came out with 78% said how important are thumbnails, how important are titles? 78% say as important as thumbnails, which is interesting. 11% say ultimately important, and the different 11% say not that important. So I'm going to see, there's this other thing we can do here. Let's see. Start a Q&A. I think this is a way to do it. So I'm going to try to do it this way. It's not really going to be a Q&A. What happened? Okay. So now you can put in, I think this is how you work this. I'm going to put in common video title mistakes, and then I don't know how this works. I think you have to type something or do something now, and we'll see what happens. So now there's a Q&A going. So now you can put in there what you've seen as common video title mistakes. Let's see. So then we got write titles that don't suck but get clicks. I just put that in there for keywords. So then there's the places where you can check this out. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And yeah, this is going to be a shorter one today, I guess. What are we missing? We don't have any other... Well, if you want to throw some comments in there, if you want to figure out how that thing works, the Q&A thing works. Nobody's saying anything on it, I don't think. Oh, okay, no, I'm wrong. DJ's got misspellings in here. So select question. Did it just show up on the screen or something? Or it just shows up in the comments? Is that what happens? It doesn't even get pinned. What happens to it? Lame. But you know what? I can't put it in StreamYard. Sorry, I'm just playing behind the scenes here. It's not in StreamYard. So whenever you said that, it doesn't come up as a regular comment. So essentially this, whatever this is called again, this questions thing is pretty dumb. All it lets me do is pin DJ's thing to the top, I think, right? I guess if you didn't have StreamYard, this would be fun, but we have StreamYard, so we'll just go ahead and close that. So if anybody wants to put in there some problems or whatever, but I think misspellings is a good one. Misspellings, it's an interesting one. On the internet, we'll play with misspelling sometimes. And if it's a common misspelling, for sure, you definitely don't want to ignore common misspellings. But sometimes just misspellings are a way to kind of index or place adjacent to the big topic. And if everybody knows it's spelled with a I and you spelled it with a Y, but then people start to figure out that, I like this guy's, blue and yellow version of it spelled with a Y instead of that person's green and red version of it. It shows up in the chat just like you would type. Yeah, that's weird. I think it's just a way to do this, except they can only do it over in the text. Right on. So with this, we'll end this one. I was talking on Chris from 740's chat yesterday with Flying Rich, and I've had some questions about drones, and he's knowledgeable about them. I'm also going to pick his brain a little bit about 3D printers briefly, because he's using one of these plug it in and just use it kind of appliance ones. It's also prints really fast. They're not cheap, but they're like anything, they get cheaper as the new ones come out all the time. So it sounds like the Ender models, which had been sort of the dominant one to buy, are starting to be replaced by this bamboo, I think they're called. So I'm going to chat with him quickly about that. But then also he's interested in this mesh tack stick. So if you're still thinking that you need to buy a radio and do everything with a radio, that's old-fashioned. Radios stand out like a sore thumb. They're a big, giant mountain spike in the radio spectrum every time you turn it on. So get a scanner all you want. Listen to what other people are doing on the radio. Just listen. There's no lack of security listening. You don't indicate anything by listening. Whenever you click a mic button, you're telling the whole world. And if you don't think we have an entire signal corps of our military, if you don't think we have NASA, and if you don't think we have the FCC, that are all involved with understanding that stuff. Yeah, they don't do anything, but it doesn't mean they don't know about it. So radios are dumb, and they're just things that were used to be cool back in the old days. Now we have things that are way cooler using the spectrum that radio, remote control cars and TV remote controls, the little tiny spectrums that are so noisy that no one can find anything in them. And you use those spectrums to chat between this little radio devices that cost you $26 instead of buying whole radios that use the whole spectrum and alert everybody to everything you do. But whatever. Curious to hear about these things from somebody who's played with them already. I've just been looking at them. I don't have any money to spend on them, but certainly an interesting advancement in technology. Every time something gets smaller and less dependent on infrastructure, it's interesting. And this is, a development in that direction. So I'm going to chat with Rich if he's available a little bit later on today. And we'll be back next week with another coaching show. So I wanted to go with something fairly cut and dry today, something we haven't hit on in a while, and something that's just another building block. So we went with titles, but we could dig into, larger, bigger picture issues. We could do more building blocks, which are, they're never fun, but they're interesting and they're necessary to some extent. When you don't examine the small pieces, your large work could be corrupted, right? Like if you're not paying attention to the small details, your larger piece is susceptible. So to not neglect this stuff, we'll keep addressing these things. However, we don't have to, we're not doing the basics here. I hold back doing advanced stuff because I never know doing these broadcasts, what level everyone's at or what ambition people have. So not going to do all basics for sure, but since we're talking about mostly Second Amendment focused things, we need people on board. So the basics are necessary for sure. And every once in a while we want to address them. But with that, we'll start to wrap it up. DJ's throwing a number in here for essentially crisis management. If you know somebody who's going through something, needs to talk, think of 911 and change it to 988. It's a nationwide system that a lot of people went through a lot of effort to get built. And if you just remember 911 and 988, I don't know how you want to remember that, but 988 is a nationwide number that can help someone get to someone if they need to talk with somebody. Most of the problems we've got are just stress and dealing with it. Obviously, most stress is, what's the word? It like comes and goes. So if someone just needs somebody to help them get through that peak, there's resources available. And we're all better off when that happens. So thanks to DJ for consistently posting those messages. And with that, we'll wrap this one up. We'll do another commercial for our store. Just check out the store. We've got lots of good stuff over there. And we hand out handfuls of free shit when you buy stuff at our store. Thanks for joining. And let us know if you've got, like I said, I was kind of went off on a tangent there, but let us know if you've got any ideas for next week or title or topics for those Tuesday shows. If you've got something that's struggling or you're struggling with or that's bugging you, we don't have these things scheduled out to other than to be effective and be useful and hopefully address things that aren't redundant. We're definitely open and able to address things that might be useful for you. So just let us know.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
Just so everyone knows, this dog is still kicking. I'm going to give him this piece of cheese. And you see he is able to wake up for a piece of cheese. And then I'm going to also give him the second piece of cheese. So he'll eat cheese. He just won't wake up for the show and to be a good co-host. You're not getting any more cheese.